Hello, I'm Dr. William Schlosser, Washington State University, School of the Environment. This is my classroom.
Throughout our ecological journeys, we have explored abiotic factors influencing how plants and animals interact. This included geologic and climatological interactions specific to each site explored. These naturally occurring abiotic factors are influenced by environmental modifications we influence. Through these modifications, we ultimately make the change to how the primary producers of each physical site can extract energy. This starts with photosynthesis by the plants found on each site. This photosynthetic process is where our primary energy source delivers this power of life. That is the sun. Photosynthetic plant activity makes the terrestrial plant factories where new energy is delivered. We explore how energy transitions from abiotic sources to the active growth of biotically active plants. There are several processes we can capture to gain the understanding of why each physical site has a different productive potential based on the conversion of ecosystem primary productivity. When these factors are understood, measured, and expressed, we gain understanding of how these processes determine life. This productivity begins with climate-driven energy transfer of precipitation and its temperature. Determine the active growing period for each site to see what is possible. With those factors engaged, plants seek the nutrients they need to thrive and survive. Paramount among these nutrients is nitrogen and carbon. Their availability for plant uptake and storage determines what energy will be available for net primary productivity. Now, we continue the journey. Energy captured by autotrophs is transferred to herbivores eating those plants. These heterotrophs convert energy to enable life. It is this primary energy capture which defines the productivity level of each ecosystem. The powerhouse needs to operate to make the energy transfer initiate and nutrient capture to expand. The food web continues throughout each ecosystem as energy is transferred from one trophic level to another. Ultimately, detrivores make the ultimate completion of this circle of life, as dead animals and plants are decomposed, with their nutrients returned to the soil and atmosphere where it starts. These chemical energy conversion concepts are expressed as primary production and are specific to each physical site. Biodiversity is associated with each site's ability to convert abiotic operations into living energy. Put these concepts into action as secondary producers are fundamentally limited by their limited size of the dinner table. If plants cannot capture initial energy, then animals will not be able to thrive on the energy captured by these autotrophs. Give this some thought as you consider biodiversity conditions in the Arctic tundra compared to the tropical rainforest. Differences of plant and animal diversity expresses evidence of how climate's energy transfer options are delivered with obvious examples of life. Let's explore how plants capture energy. We look again at leaf stomata, but this time we get into greater magnification, where we find organelles. These are found in plant cells. Chloroplasts convert light energy of the sun into sugars used by cells. The entire process is called photosynthesis, and it all depends on the little green chloroplast molecules in each chloroplast. Photosynthesis occurs only in these chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are located throughout the cytoplasm of the cells of plant leaves and other parts depending on the type of plant. Actually, you can see where in a plant the chloroplasts are because chloroplasts are what makes the plants appear green. As much as 75% of leaf nitrogen is used to create and sustain chloroplasts. Nitrogen enables photosynthetic apparatus, including thylakoid membranes and photosynthetic enzymes. Nitrogen will significantly enlarge chloroplast size, increase chloroplast number, and enhance grana aggregation. Plants can only acquire nitrogen from soils, and this can only be moved into the plant systems via its roots and then transcribed through xylem and phloem layers. By volume, dry air contains 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 1% argon, and trace amounts of carbon dioxide, and small amounts of other gases. Despite nitrogen's atmospheric availability, none of it is directly available to growing plants. They need all nitrogen to be filtered through their roots. Photosynthesis is the plant process where light energy is used to generate ATP. Adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, is an organic compound providing energy for many metabolic processes. In the chloroplasts, ATP is a product of the first stage of photosynthesis, and it provides energy for the second stage. After photosynthesis is over, this nucleotide powers metabolism for the entire plant cell. Chemiosmosis is the process by which plant cells produce ATP. ATP is an important source of biological energy. Energy is transferred from molecules such as glucose. During photosynthesis, energy is transcribed to ATP in the light-dependent stage, and the ATP is utilized during synthesis in the light-independent stage. ATP forms bonds between carbon dioxide molecules and the hydrogen atoms released from water by photosynthetically active radiation. The process forms sugar, or glucose molecules, and produces oxygen as a waste product. At a glance, the equations sugar plus oxygen results in carbon dioxide plus water plus ATP energy. This is cellular respiration. Carbon dioxide plus water plus sun's energy results in sugar plus oxygen plus water. This is photosynthesis. These look to be the reverse of each other, but in fact they are both very complex and dissimilar processes. Products of photosynthesis are glucose and oxygen. Think about where photosynthesis occurs. It is only in the chloroplasts. Cellular respiration is the careful enzymatic taking apart of glucose molecules. Some of the energy trapped in the bonds of this sugar molecule are captured and stored in the bonds of ATP molecules. The destruction of one glucose molecule results in the construction of 36 ATP molecules. The energy not captured in ATP is lost to its surroundings as heat. ATP formed is used by cells for processes such as growth. The gas used to break apart sugars during respiration is our best friend oxygen. During plant respiration, gas is released from the plant and we know of that gas as carbon dioxide. Matter cycles between the biotic and abiotic environments. Simple inorganic molecules such as CO2, N2, and H2O are assimilated, or fixed from the abiotic environment by producers and microbes, and built into complex organic molecules such as carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. These organic molecules are passed through food chains and eventually return to the abiotic environment, again as simple inorganic molecules by decomposers. Without either producers or decomposers, there would be no nutrient cycling and no life. These processes are enabled in each terrestrial plant ecosystem as a reflection of site energy potential. The highest rates of net primary production on land are found in the tropics. Why? Think of the increased time of photosynthetically active radiation availability on these tropical sites, where virtually all precipitation falls with temperatures above 4 degrees centigrade. No snow to announce plant inactivity. All hands are on deck. Tropical zones have long growing seasons and high precipitation, promoting high rates of net primary productivity. Oceanic MPP peaks at mid-latitudes in zones of upwelling, where nutrient-rich deep water comes to the surface. Consider these productivity interactions and why NPP increases with average annual temperature. While site productivity may increase, ecosystem carbon storage may not. Warmer temperatures also increase respiration rates and loss of plant sequestered carbon. When temperature increases, the rate of respiration increases because the heat speeds up the reactions, which means kinetic energy is higher. This means reactions speed up and the rate of cellular respiration increases. When temperature decreases, in order to conserve energy, cellular processes slow down. We cannot just add more warm water to the sea, the plants continue their growth and carbon sequestration totals. Continuously increasing precipitation will lead to a decrease in MPP. Flip this around to consider temperature, and again we see the MPP drop off its increases. Again, we see how everything comes with interactive trade-offs. Those high levels of precipitation can be delivered on porous soils. This scene in Wyoming was in June 2006, and the temperatures were around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. When these torrential downpours hit, the porous soils were leached. Plants took very little benefit from the rushed increase in precipitation. Continuously high precipitation will flush soils by dissolving nutrients found within the upper soil layers, which then carries those nutrients out of the reach of plant roots. This is called soil leaching. Leaching of soil by high precipitation reduces potassium, nitrogen, and sulfur. These are the most mobile nutrients found in soils. Seems the table was set, but all the plant guests were left with no seats or plates to eat from. They had no cups to take a drink with. Jump to the other extreme in the Mojave Desert of Nevada. Here, temperatures are persistently high. Photosynthetically active radiation is not a limiting factor. The amount of precipitation available for plants to use is limited. Precipitation is low, and the only surviving plants are adapted to this arid environment. Back into Kamiak Butte ecosystems. Phenology expresses stage of plant and animal life cycles as influenced by seasonal variations in climate. That is how we progress through this spring, summer, fall, and winter series. This expresses occurrence of biological phenomena, initiation of growth, flowering, breeding, migration, and dispersal. Their annual cycle, in relation to climatic conditions, places phenology as response of biological organisms to seasonal variations in environmental factors, like light, temperature, and precipitation. Changing growing seasons are important indicators of changes in the climate system. Phenology is nature's calendar. When cherry trees bloom, when a robin builds its nest, and when leaves turn color in the fall. Phenology is a key component of life on Earth. Many birds time their nesting so that eggs hatch when insects are available to feed nestlings. Likewise, insect emergence is often synchronized with leaf out in host plants. Phenology influences the abundance and distribution of organisms, ecosystem services, food webs, and global cycles of water and carbon. In general, as you go up the food chain, the size of the individuals increases, and the number of individuals decreases. These sorts of observations can be displayed in ecological pyramids. This is the familiar rule of 10. Consumers retain 10% of the energy they consume, with 90% paid to the cost of living. This displays the numbers of organisms at each food chain trophic level. Use this display to conceptualize how large your subject ecosystem is. Are you considering the coastal evergreen forests from Oregon through Washington and into British Columbia? That is a large base with biologically diverse primary producers. They are able to support a robust mix of primary consumers, who support secondary consumers, and then the apex predators known as tertiary consumers. The first law of thermodynamics states that the amount of energy in the universe is constant. It may change from one form to another, but it can neither be created nor destroyed. Light energy can be neither created nor destroyed as it passes through the atmosphere. It may, however, be transformed into another type of energy, such as chemical energy or heat energy. These forms of energy cannot be transformed into electromagnetic radiation. The second law of thermodynamics states that non-random energy, known as mechanical or chemical, or radiant energy, cannot be changed without some degradation into heat energy. The change of energy from one form to another takes place in such a way that a part of energy assumes waste form as heat energy. In this way, after transformation, the capacity of energy to perform work is decreased. Thus, energy flows from higher to lower levels. Consider how these energy transformations are witnessed on landscapes. If your subject property is Kamiak Butte, occupying only a few hundred acres, then immediately you will find the number of players at each trophic level is decreased. Biodiversity is reduced by simple virtue of what energies are available. Here we are looking at tree core samples. Both are from ponderosa pine trees. The upper from north aspect of the butte, the other from the south aspect. Tree heights are strikingly different, with the north aspect trees about twice the height of the trees on the south aspect. Look at the dark wood from these samples. This is the winter wood and how we count tree ages. One winter a year, and the number of dark wood lines gives age. The red arrow shows one growth year on the upper tree core from the north aspect, during which the lower tree core from the south aspect took 7 years to make. The measurement scale indicates the radial growth of 0.6 of an inch took the south aspect trees 13 years to grow, while the north aspect tree took only 3. This is description of how net primary productivity describes the growth of trees. Here, the two locations at Kamiak Butte are separated by less than 2,500 feet. Their energy differences are realized by aspects oppositely oriented to the extremes of north and south-facing aspects. Temperature timing is the most striking factor of change, affected through temperature timing and extremes. This is energy delivery transfer through these ecosystems. Energy must pass through obligatory trophic levels from plants to herbivores, to omnivores and carnivores, ultimately passing through those detrivores with their return to abiotic nutrients. 3 things can happen to the energy taken in by the organisms in a trophic level. It can be passed on to the biomass of the next trophic level in the food chain when the organism is eaten. It can become stored in detritus. This energy is passed on to decomposers where the detritus decays. It can be converted to heat energy by inefficient chemical reactions, radiated by warm bodies, or in fraction due to movement. The heat energy is lost to surroundings and cannot be regained by living organisms. A nutrient cycle refers to the movement and exchange of organic and inorganic matter back to the production of living matter. The process is regulated by the food web pathways previously presented, which decompose organic matter into inorganic nutrients. Nutrient cycles occur within ecosystems. The many relationships between community members in an ecosystem can be described by food chains and webs. Each stage in a food chain is called a trophic level, and the arrows represent the flow of energy and matter through the food chain. Food chains always start with photosynthetic producers, such as plants, algae, plankton, and photosynthetic bacteria. Producers are able to extract both energy and matter from the abiotic environment, in the form of energy from the sun, and 98% of their matter from carbon dioxide in the air. The remaining 2% of their energy budget comes from the water and the minerals stored in the soil. Consider these factors as we approach Kamiak Butte again. We consider that factor of energy being transferred from one trophic level to the next. Sensible heat is exchanged by thermodynamic systems that change the temperature of the system without changing some variables such as volume or pressure. Sensible heat is the heat that you can feel. Sensible heat possessed by an object is evidenced by its temperature. As temperature increases, the sensible heat content also increases. For a given change in sensible heat content, all objects do not change temperature by the same amount. Each substance has its own characteristic relationship between heat content and temperature. The proportionality constant between temperature rise and change in heat content is called the specific heat, measured in calories per gram per degree Celsius or joules per kilogram per Kelvin. Water, for example, has a specific heat of 1 calorie per gram per degree centigrade. In general, the gain in heat is accompanied by either a change in volume or a change in pressure. Latent heat is the energy absorbed or released by a thermodynamic system during a constant temperature process. Examples include ice melting or water boiling. When a solid turns into a liquid or a liquid turns into a gas, the loosening of attraction among the molecules requires energy. If you raise ice from -20 degrees centigrade to 0 degrees centigrade, you put in sensible heat. If you keep adding heat to ice, it melts, but its temperature is constant. The sensible heat of ice-water systems is not increasing, but you continue to add heat energy to it. Energy is converted such that the extra heat tears apart the frozen ice molecules and sets them loose as a liquid. The liquid is therefore storing this energy in a form you cannot sense. This energy is called latent heat. Heat energy is conserved no matter how the phase change occurs. If you put heat into water, it can evaporate. Water will cool off. That is some of the sensible heat lost and converted to latent heat. Conversely, if you cool off some water vapor, it can condense into liquid. It condenses on its own. It will give off sensible heat and get warmer. Therefore, sensible heat can be felt, while latent heat is the type of heat that cannot be felt. The interactions between the Earth's non-living elements with its living ones are called ecological processes. These actions shape forests and landscapes. The four fundamental ecological processes of ecosystems are the water cycle, biochemical or nutrient cycling, energy flow, and community dynamics. The composition and structure of an ecosystem changes following disturbances. Ecological processes are general descriptions about the interactions and connections between living and non-living systems. This includes movements of energy, nutrients, and species. Or in more poetic lay terms, it is the natural machinery that connects living and non-living things and keeps nature healthy. We will always use these measures of energy transfer within ecosystems to articulate what primary productivity can sustain. We express this as we describe plant characteristics, wildlife diversity, and overall biodiversity measures. We are flying east of Kamiak Butte, viewing the north-facing aspect on the right and the south-facing aspect on the left. Species diversity is the product of these processes we discuss. Phenology is the study of cyclic and seasonal natural phenomena, especially in relation to climate and its effects on plant and animal life. Phenology studies periodic plant and animal life cycle events and how these are influenced by the seasonal and interannual variations in climate, as well as habitat factors. This is how we describe biomes, and by extension, the biodiversity they support. Seasonal cycles of energy transfer are obvious, especially the farther you move away from the equator in the direction of the poles. However, annual decadal and longer changes are more challenging to discover. They are real and important, being engaged through descriptions of climate, animals, and the plants of each ecosystem. The character, integrity, stability, and resilience of each ecosystem is determined by the biotic and abiotic opportunities available. No two ecosystems are identical, and all express different opportunities. The informal concept of stability refers to the tendency of a system to return to a position of equilibrium when disturbed. This assumes the constant and pervasive balance of energy delivery through time. That may be an anthropogenic bias, assuming that ecosystems are not mutable. Conversely, we can recognize the persistency of changes as the most constant variable of all. Conceptually, this requires us to put a personality to abiotic factors. That is done only for our convenience. Abiotic factors combine to generate that abiotic flow character, interpreted by how we perceive it. We title these outcomes in light of ecological processes. It does not matter if we understand all the processes observed or not. It is most marked to see what we consider to be the results, knowing even our measured recognition of these outcomes is still only a snapshot in time. Continue this concept of ecosystem function with this clear lens, recognizing how minute variations in one input variable will affect marked differences in what we perceive as ecosystem function. This leads us to our understanding of biodiversity. It is the variability among living organisms from all sources, including terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystems. Biodiversity forms the foundation of the vast array of ecosystem services that critically contribute to human well-being. Biodiversity recognition is important in human-managed as well as natural ecosystems. Decisions humans make that influence biodiversity affect the well-being of themselves and others. We take these considerations from genes to species, to ecosystems, and the interactions between trophic levels through each interaction. Biodiversity plays an important role in ecosystem functioning. Biodiversity is a portmanteau. That makes an interesting hybrid word, biodiversity. It is a linguistic blend of words including bio, for life, and diversity, generally referring to the variety and variability of life on Earth. Understanding requires the incorporation of many influencing factors. Energy transfer in and between organisms is affected within the atmosphere, through terrestrial environments, in the soils, and through interactions with water. This energy can then be passed from one organism to another in the food chain. Within the food chain, energy can be passed and transferred from one organism to another. We look into soils, one of the reservoirs of carbon and nitrogen. This is a soil profile from Kamiak Butte's north-facing aspect. It is dark in color, reflecting high organic matter content, developed by decaying wood, detritus from plants and animals living and dying here. On the right is a soil profile from the south-facing aspect lands. To enlarge, we see it as shallow, leached of nutrients, with little evidence of decaying nutrients being made available to plants. We look at nutrient measures of these soils, made available through mass spectrometry. This informs the measures of carbon and nitrogen and in what forms they exist. We see how the north-facing aspect soils contain 5.7% carbon and 0.27% nitrogen. In contrast, the south-facing aspect soils contain only 1.8% carbon and 0.16% nitrogen. We will explore how soil carbon availability does not negatively affect plant growth, while these nitrogen levels hold deterministic limitations. Energy moves life. The cycle of energy is based on the flow of energy through different trophic levels in an ecosystem. Our ecosystem is maintained by the cycling energy and nutrients obtained from different external sources. Two aspects of this energy flow are paramount to understanding these interactions: nitrogen and carbon. We have heard about their importance, but now you will put it to new realizations. Each cycle is dependent on the other. Plants cannot sequester carbon without inputs of nitrogen, but plants cannot integrate nitrogen without carbon first being seized. We extend this journey by looking first at the carbon cycle through trees. Soil organic matter is made up of four major pools: plant residues, particulate organic carbon, humus carbon, and recalcitrate organic carbon. The element carbon has the ability to cycle globally due to its atmospheric reservoir. In the carbon cycle, carbon dioxide, CO2, from the atmosphere is absorbed by plants through photosynthesis, then returned to the atmosphere via cellular respiration. In more depth, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere reservoir is taken in by plants in order to complete photosynthesis. Plants then serve two purposes. They produce oxygen, O2, and they become food for primary consumers. The oxygen in the air is breathed in by all organisms as part of cellular respiration, which returns carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. The plant food eaten by the primary consumers contains carbon, which is passed up through the trophic pyramid to all levels of consumers. In addition, dead material containing carbon is decomposed and eaten by detrivores, another part of the food chain. The element carbon cycles globally due to its atmospheric reservoir. Understanding that although carbon is found in decaying organic matter and within minerals found in abiotic earth compounds, it only enters plants as carbon dioxide, absorbed during photosynthesis. This is the only entry point to enable plant life. Nitrogen is necessary for all known forms of life on Earth. This is a component in all amino acids. It is incorporated into proteins and is present in the bases that make up nucleic acids such as RNA and DNA. The Earth's atmosphere is 78% nitrogen gas, but most plants and animals cannot use nitrogen gas directly from the air, as they do carbon dioxide and oxygen. Chemical processing or natural fixation is necessary to convert gaseous nitrogen into compounds such as nitrate or amino acid, which can be used by plants. The abundance or scarcity of this fixed nitrogen, also known as reactive nitrogen, frequently limits plant growth in both managed and wild environments. The nitrogen cycle, like the carbon cycle, is an important part of every ecosystem. Nitrogen is an essential component for proteins, genetic material, chlorophyll, and other key organic molecules. All organisms require nitrogen to live. It ranks fourth behind oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen as the most common chemical element in living tissues. Plants and all organisms must secure their nourishment from nitrogen pulled from the air and bonded to hydrogen or oxygen to form inorganic compounds, mainly ammonium, NH4, and nitrate, NO3. Nitrogen in the atmosphere is only found in the form N2. Only very few creatures can take in nitrogen in this form. And therefore, nitrogen-fixing bacteria in the soil take on this task. The bacteria come in two types: free bacteria and root nodule bacteria. Free bacteria survive on their own in the soil. These bacteria carry out the chemical reactions that changes N2 to ammonium, NH4, called nitrogen fixation. Ammonium and nitrate, NO3, another form of nitrogen, can be used by most plants and are found in amino acids. Nitrates come from nutrifying bacteria in the soil, which take on ammonium to create nitrate, called nitrification. These nitrates, in addition to supplying amino acids to plants, return the atmospheric reservoir through processes called, incidentally, denitrification. Finally, we get to root nodule bacteria. These bacteria supply legumes, or pod-producing plants, with nitrogen that they cannot receive on their own. This is a commensalistic relationship because the bacteria do not benefit, but the legume could not possibly survive without them. Another process in the nitrogen cycle is the decomposition of animals. As stated before, animals cannot absorb N2 on their own, so they must rely on the plants they eat to get their nitrogen. When these animals die, the nitrogen stays with them, as does the carbon, and detrivores transform it into ammonium, thus continuing the cycle. Plants absorb nitrogen from the soil, both as NH4 and NO3 ions. But because nitrification is so pervasive in agricultural soils, most of the nitrogen is taken up as a nitrate. Nitrate moves freely towards plant roots as they absorb water. Once inside the plant, NO3 is reduced to an NH2 form, and it is assimilated to produce more complex compounds. Chemosynthesis is the synthesis of organic compounds by bacteria or other living organisms using energy derived from reactions involving inorganic chemicals, typically in the absence of sunlight. Size of nitrogen pools and the flux between pools is governed by the biological processes within the ecosystem, which is governed by the physical environment. Carbon abundance and availability of water in the ecosystem determines the size of nitrogen pools and fluxes between them. Bacteria can neither persist without the source of carbon nor can they function in an environment where water is limited. Thus, the characters that govern the carbon cycle also significantly influence the nitrogen cycle. The four fundamental ecological processes of ecosystems are the water cycle, biochemical or nutrient cycling, energy flow, and community dynamics. This is how the composition and structure of ecosystems present observations of life, born from the mass of abiotic factors. Plant communities are energy pathways that include all organisms that are linked as they pass along the food energy, beginning with a producer and moving to consumers. Interwoven food chains show organisms eating from different trophic levels. Energy levels within a food chain or food web express how these factors interact. At all levels of interaction, be it between plants and animals, or between animal species, the health and diversity presented in ecosystems is bounded by available nitrogen and carbon. Knowing that carbon sequestration by plants from the atmosphere needs nitrogen to capture through its roots, enabled as dissolved nutrients in precipitation liquefied at temperatures above 4 degrees centigrade. This is our ecosystem balance of life.